I froze with my hand on the edge of the birthday cake. My family stood around me in the Hart Mansion ballroom. And it mattered because this was the exact room where my life had started falling apart once before. The candles were already lit. The guests were smiling. Olivia was standing beside my mother like the perfect daughter everyone loved. And I was staring at a flame that should not have existed because I remembered dying. The memory hit me so hard that my fingers trembled. A black road, screeching tires, blood, then darkness. I remembered lying alone in a hospital bed 3 years from now. I remembered my family choosing Olivia over me again and again. I remembered my father refusing to answer my calls, my mother believing every lie, Jason turning away whenever I entered a room. I remembered dying without a single member of my family beside me. Yet, somehow I was standing here, 18 years old, alive back. On the day everything began, my stomach twisted. The room looked exactly the same. The crystal chandelier above, the white roses on every table, the expensive smiles, every detail matched the memory I hated most. My eyes found Olivia. She was wearing the same pink dress, the same innocent smile, the same expression she wore before she destroyed. Me already knew what would happen next. In my first life, she accused me of stealing a diamond bracelet from her bedroom. Everyone believed her. Nobody asked for proof. Nobody even looked surprised. They'd already decided who I was. The problem wasn't the accusation. The problem was that they wanted it to be true. I clenched my jaw. Not this time, Olivia suddenly touched my arm. Emily, she said sweetly. Why do you look upset? It's your birthday. I looked at her hand, then at her face. The same face that cried fake tears while my life burned down. I almost laughed. Nothing I said. Her smile flickered for a second. She wasn't used to calm answers. Before she could speak again, my mother walked toward us. Sophia Hart looked elegant as always. She adjusted Olivia's hair before even looking at me. The small action hurt more than it should have. 3 years hadn't changed that. Everyone is waiting, my mother said. Try to smile. I nodded. The words sounded familiar. Not happy birthday. Not are you okay. It's just smile. Like I was decoration. Like I existed to keep the room comfortable. The guests gathered closer. My father raised a glass. Richard Hart looked proud. Not of me, of the image. The perfect family. The successful businessman. The beautiful adopted daughter. The troublesome biological daughter hidden behind expensive dresses and forced smiles. I remembered that image. I remembered how much it mattered to him. Then Olivia moved. My heart sank. Right on schedule. Oh no, she gasped. The room turned. She stared at her wrist. Her bracelet was gone, exactly like before. I can't find it. Several guests exchanged looks. I saw excitement in some faces. People love drama when it wasn't happening to them. Olivia bit her lip. I had it earlier. Nobody spoke. Nobody needed to. I already knew where this was going. Jason walked over. Maybe you misplaced it. Olivia shook her head. I checked everywhere. Her voice became smaller, softer, more fragile. The performance had begun. I don't want to accuse anyone. That sentence was always the accusation. The room grew quiet. I watched my father, my mother, Jason. Every face looked exactly as it had 3 years ago. Waiting, expecting. Ready? Olivia slowly looked at me. Hope nobody took it. There it was, the first shot. I could almost hear the future laughing in my previous life. I cried. I begged. I defended myself. Nobody cared, the more I explained. The guiltier I looked. I learned that lesson the hard way. This time I stayed silent. The silence bothered them. Olivia blinked. You aren't saying anything. I don't need to. The room went strangely quiet. My father frowned. My mother crossed her arms. Olivia looked confused. Good. Let her be confused. For once, I wasn't following the script she wrote for me. A servant suddenly approached. His face was pale. Miss Olivia. The room turned toward him. I found something. He held up the missing bracelet. My mother immediately looked at me. I almost smiled. The bracelet wasn't even hidden yet. The servant swallowed. It was found near Miss Emily's gift table. A murmur spread through the room. There it was. The moment that ruined my first life. The exact same lie. The exact same setup. The exact same audience. Olivia lowered her eyes. I knew there had to be an explanation. Such a perfect victim. Such a perfect actress. My father stared at me. Emily, just my name. Nothing else. No question, no benefit of the doubt, just disappointment. Like always, something inside. They finally became still, not broken, not angry. Still, I suddenly realized I wasn't trapped anymore. The worst thing had already happened. I had lived through it once, and I survived. My hand reached for the necklace. Around my neck, the silver butterfly necklace, the only gift my grandmother ever gave me before she became too sick to travel, the only thing that made me feel loved. In my previous life, I protected it for years. Tonight I removed it. The chain slid into my palm. The metal felt cold. Everyone watched. Nobody understood. I walked to the long table in the center of the room. Then I placed the necklace down softly. Without a word, Olivia stared. My mother looked confused. My father frowned. Emily, he said. I met his eyes. I hope Olivia enjoys being your favorite. The room fell silent. Nobody expected that. Nobody expected me to leave. Nobody expected me to stop fighting for their approval. That was the part that shocked them. I turned around. No tears. No shouting. No explanations, just one step. Then another. Behind me, someone called my name. I kept walking. The ballroom doors opened. Cool night air touched my face. For the first time in years. I could breathe. The mansion lights glowed behind me. The same mansion where I spent my entire life trying to earn love that never came. I stepped onto the front path. My chest tightened. Not from pain, from memory. I remembered every betrayal waiting in the next 3 years. Every lie, every humiliation, every moment they chose Olivia. A bitter laugh escaped me. Then a thought crossed my mind. I never meant to say it aloud. I had ever even opened my mouth. Fine. Hate me again. 3 years later, you'll regret choosing Olivia over me. Behind me, the ballroom suddenly went dead silent, and inside the mansion, for the first time in his life, Richard Hart began wondering if I had been telling the truth all along. I stopped walking when I heard glass shatter behind me. My family was still inside the Hart Mansion ballroom. It mattered because every person in that room had just heard a thought I never said aloud. Fine, hate me again. 3 years later, you'll regret choosing Olivia over me. The words still echoed in my head. I slowly turned around, through the open ballroom doors. I could see frozen faces. My father looked pale. My mother stared toward the entrance as if she had seen a ghost. Even Olivia looked shaken. Good for once. They were the confused ones. I walked away before anyone could stop me. The cold air hit my face. My hands trembled slightly as I gripped the necklace chain that was no longer around my neck. A strange feeling sat inside. My chest, not victory, not relief, more like standing on a road I had already traveled, and knowing exactly where every trap was hidden. Then another memory surfaced. The thoughts in my first life. Nobody could hear them. Now they could. I didn't know why. I only knew one thing. The moment I became emotional. Everyone nearby heard what was inside my head. That was dangerous for them. And maybe for me too. My phone buzzed. Mother? I ignored it. A second call came. Father ignored a bod. Third, Jason ignored a bod. I slipped the phone back into my pocket. 3 years ago, I would have answered immediately. I would have begged them to listen. Now I already knew how those conversations ended. I wasn't interested in repeating history. Another vibration came. This time it was a text. Jason, where are you? We need to talk. I stared at the message. The words felt strange. Jason had never wanted to talk before. Not when Olivia accused me. Not when everyone called me selfish. Not when I spent nights crying alone. The silence back then had been louder than any insult. I locked my phone. If they wanted answers, they could earn them. I stepped into the mansion the next afternoon. My father had demanded a family meeting. The dining room already felt tense. Richard sat at the head of the table. Sophia sat beside him. Jason leaned against a window. Olivia sat in her usual place, the favorite seat. The room smelled like expensive coffee and forced patience. Nobody looked comfortable. That alone was new. Father spoke first. "Emily." I looked at him. "What happened last night?" Dozen answers crossed my mind. The real one stayed behind my teeth. "You heard what happened." The room became quiet. My father frowned. He didn't like short answers, especially from me. Olivia suddenly reached for my hand. I almost laughed at the performance. "Emily is my dear sister," she said softly. "I don't know why she's upset with me, but I hope we can fix things together." My stomach tightened. Not because of her words, because I remembered hearing almost the exact sentence before she ruined my life. I pulled my hand away. "I'm not upset." The room went still. Olivia blinked. The answer wasn't what she expected. Her smile looked slightly forced. "Now, good." Jason studied both of us carefully. For the first time, he wasn't immediately looking at me like I was guilty. That tiny change mattered, more than I wanted to admit. Father cleared his throat. "What about the thought everyone heard?" Nobody answered, because nobody had an explanation. Neither did I. I stared at the table. The memory of their shocked faces flashed through my mind. Then something happened. Mother suddenly inhaled sharply. Jason straightened. Father's eyes widened. I froze. They heard it. They had heard the memory, not the full memory. Just the emotion attached to it. The fear, the betrayal, the certainty. I swallowed, so it wasn't random. Strong emotions triggered it that made everything worse and better. Depending on who was lying, Olivia shifted in her chair. For the first time, she looked nervous. I stepped into the hallway after the meeting ended. The mansion felt unusually quiet. Most people avoided eye contact. That was another first. Usually they followed Olivia's lead. Today, they looked uncertain. Uncertainty was dangerous for people who lived on assumptions. A faint voice drifted from around a corner. I recognized it immediately. "Olivia." I stopped. The voice became clearer. She was talking on the phone. I shouldn't have listened. Instead, I moved closer. Years of betrayal had cured me of guilt. Olivia laughed softly. "No, don't worry." A pause. Then her voice changed. Colder, sharper, more honest. "Once I get the family trust, Emily is finished." My heartbeat stopped for a second. Couldn't breathe. The words punched straight through 3 years of memories because I remembered them. Not the exact sentence, the outcome, the trust, the inheritance, the fight, the destruction. Everything began with the family trust. Olivia continued speaking. "She's already losing control." Another pause. "I've handled worse." My hands curled into fists. I wanted to storm into the room. I wanted to drag her into the hallway and expose everything. Instead, I stayed silent. I had already learned this lesson. Acting without proof only helped her. I took one slow breath, then another. The anger rolled through me, and suddenly everyone heard it. The reaction exploded from inside my head before I could stop it. There it is, the real Olivia, the same liar who destroyed my life before. Silence filled the hallway. A door opened somewhere nearby, then another. People had heard it again. I closed my eyes. Great, perfect timing. When I looked up, Jason was standing 10 feet away. His face had gone pale. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking toward the room where Olivia stood. The doubt in his eyes was impossible to miss. For the first time in my life, he looked uncertain about her. The realization almost hurt, not because it happened, because it took this long. Grandmother. Evelyn called me into her sitting room that evening. The room smelled like tea leaves and old books. She sat beside the fireplace, unlike everyone else. She didn't look confused. She looked thoughtful. That worried me more. I sat down across from her. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she sighed. "You've been carrying something alone for a very long time." The words landed harder than they should have. I looked away. The fire crackled softly. "I've made mistakes," she said. I remained silent. I saw things I should have questioned. My fingers tightened around the armrest. That was the closest thing to an apology anyone in this family had ever given me. Grandmother studied me. "Tell me something honestly." I looked back at her. "Are you afraid of Olivia?" I almost smiled. The question was 3 years late, but it was still the right question. "I don't trust her." The room became very quiet. Grandmother slowly nodded, like she had finally reached a conclusion she didn't want. The next morning, I entered Father's office. Richard was standing beside. It's Daniel Brooks. The family lawyer held a thick folder. The sight made my stomach drop. I recognized it instantly. The old file. The same file from my previous life. The file that started everything. Every terrible memory returned at. Once the arguments, the accusations, the betrayal, my pulse hammered inside my ears. Daniel adjusted his glasses. His expression looked unusually serious. Several documents were spread across the desk. Father folded his arms. "What did you find?" Daniel looked down at the papers, then back up. His face had gone pale. "I've reviewed the family trust records." The room became silent. A terrible feeling crawled up my spine. Because I already knew this file was dangerous, I just didn't know how much. Daniel had discovered. He placed one document on the desk, then another, then a third. Finally, he took a slow breath and announced that the family trust documents appeared to be forged. My fingers tightened around the armrest of the chair as Daniel placed the documents on the conference table. I was sitting in the Hart family meeting room with Richard, Sophia, Olivia, grandmother, Evelyn, and several relatives. The meeting mattered, because everyone wanted answers about the family trust, and I already knew this room could change my future. Nobody spoke for a few seconds. The silence felt heavier than shouting. Daniel adjusted his glasses. The trust records contained serious inconsistencies. A murmur spread across the room. I watched Olivia. She was smiling. That alone made me nervous. Olivia only smiled when she thought she was winning. One of my relatives leaned forward. "What inconsistencies?" Daniel opened a folder. Several signatures appear to have been altered. The room immediately became louder. Questions flew from every direction. Arguments started before answers existed. Typical people. Loved choosing sides before learning the truth. Richard raised his voice. Everyone calmed down. The noise slowly faded. I noticed Olivia pressing her nails into her palm beneath the table. Most people would have missed it. I didn't. Because I spent years learning how to read her. The perfect daughter. Mask was starting to crack. One of my aunts looked directly at me. Her expression already carried blame. None of this would be happening if Emily hadn't caused problems. Several relatives nodded. I almost laughed. The meeting was about forged trust documents, yet somehow I was still the problem. Some things never changed. Another relative crossed his arms. "She's always wanted attention." "And money," someone added. Exactly. Attacks came one after another, not because they had proof, because they had practice. 3 years of hearing the same. Accusations had made me strangely calm. I looked at the table. The polished wood reflected the room lights. A tiny scratch near my hand caught my attention. Funny, people were calling me greedy while I was staring at furniture. Emily has always been jealous of Olivia. I looked up. The speaker didn't even hesitate. The accusations sounded rehearsed. Maybe it was Olivia lowered her eyes. The performance had begun. "Please don't fight because of me." Her voice sounded soft and wounded. I never wanted any of this. A few relatives immediately moved to comfort her. Of course they did, Olivia. It was their favorite story. The poor adopted daughter, the grateful daughter. The perfect daughter. The truth never mattered as much as the image. I folded my hands. I'm fine. The room became quieter. People expected a defense, they didn't get one. One relative frowned. Another looked confused. Good, confused. People sometimes started thinking. Olivia glanced at me. The smile on her face looked slightly strained. She wanted me emotional. She wanted me arguing. She wanted me desperate. I wasn't giving her any of that. Daniel cleared his throat. I think everyone should see the original records. That sentence changed the room instantly now. People were paying attention. He removed several documents from the folder. The papers looked old. The edges had faded slightly, but I recognized them immediately. My stomach tightened. I remembered these documents. In my previous life, they appeared too late. By the time the truth surfaced, my reputation was already destroyed. Nobody cared anymore. Truth arrived slowly. Rumors travel fast. Daniel placed the first document in front of Richard, then another, then another. Richard's expression changed. Sophia leaned closer. Grandmother. Evelyn narrowed her eyes. I already knew something important was coming. The room felt smaller with every second. Daniel finally pointed to a line on the page. This is the original trust designation. Richard stared. Sophia stared. Nobody spoke. Then Richard looked up. What? Daniel nodded once. It's authentic. A strange chill moved through me. I knew what the document said, but hearing it aloud was different. Daniel took a breath. The original family trust was created in Emily Hart's name. Silence. Pure silence. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The room looked frozen. For a moment, I could hear nothing except my own heartbeat. One relative blinked twice. Another dropped her pen. Sophia looked at me, not through me at me. That almost felt stranger than the document itself. Olivia's face lost color. Only for a second. Then the mask turned. But I had seen it. Panic. Real panic. The first crack. The first genuine mistake. Richard grabbed the papers. There has to be an explanation. Daniel nodded carefully. There is. The room leaned toward him. Even the relatives stopped whispering. Daniel turned another page. The trust was modified later. Olivia suddenly spoke. Then that's the current version. Her voice came too quickly, too sharply. Everyone noticed. I noticed something else. Fear. Not in her words. In her timing, people tell the truth slowly. Liars rush to control the story. Daniel looked at her. Possibly. Possibly. Not definitely. Just one word. Yet Olivia's shoulders became stiff. I felt a strange satisfaction. Small, quiet, dangerous. The same confidence she used against me was finally slipping. Grandmother Evelyn suddenly spoke. I remember signing the original trust. Every head turned toward her, including mine. That mattered. Grandmother rarely involved herself in family disputes. When she spoke, people listened. I wanted Emily protected. The words landed like a hammer. Several relatives exchanged uncomfortable looks. Nobody expected support from me. Not publicly, not from her Sophia. Stared at the table. Richard looked troubled. The certainty I used to see in them was disappearing. For the first time in years, doubt had entered the room. And doubt was stronger than anger. Because anger defended old beliefs, doubt destroyed them. I looked at Olivia. She wasn't looking at me anymore. She was looking at the documents, and for the first time since I returned to the past, I saw something beautiful. She looked scared. My eyes stayed fixed on the laptop screen as they recovered. Footage finally started playing. I was sitting in Daniel's office with Daniel, Richard, Sophia, and Olivia. And it mattered because the video might prove what I had known for years, but could never prove. Nobody spoke. The recording came from an old security camera. The quality was poor. The image flickered every few seconds, but it was clear enough. My pulse quickened. I already knew what happened that day. I had lived through the consequences. Now everyone else was about to see the beginning. The footage showed a storage room. Boxes lined the walls. A table sat in the center. Nothing happened for several seconds. Then the door opened. Olivia walked inside. The room immediately became silent. I didn't look at the screen. I looked at Olivia. That told me more. The color had drained from her face. Her hands were folded tightly together. For once, she wasn't smiling. The video continued. Olivia approached the table. She picked up several documents. Then she switched. My heartbeat became louder. I remembered those folders. The same evidence used against me. The same evidence everyone trusted. The same evidence that destroyed my reputation. Richard leaned closer. Sophia covered her mouth. Neither spoke. The footage showed Olivia placing one folder inside a cabinet. Then she walked away. Daniel paused the video. No reasonable explanation exists for this. Nobody argued, because nobody could. The room felt smaller, like the walls themselves were closing in. Olivia suddenly sat forward. There has to be context. Her voice sounded strained. You can't judge an entire situation from a few minutes of footage. Daniel didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pressed play again. The video continued. Olivia turned. This time, she carried additional papers. She removed several pages. Then she inserted different pages. I stared at the screen. The memory hit me like a wave. The accusations, the humiliation, the endless explanations. Nobody believed. All of it started right there. On that screen, inside that room, Richard's jaw tightened. Sophia looked down. The silence around the table felt heavier than shouting. Then the footage suddenly stopped. The screen turned. Black dot. Daniel frowned. He checked the timeline. My stomach dropped. Several minutes were missing. A large section had been deleted. Olivia immediately grabbed onto that opening. Exactly. Her confidence returned. The footage is incomplete. She looked around the room. You don't know what happened before or after. Nobody responded. But I noticed something important. Nobody rushed to defend her. That had never happened before in my first life. Every accusation against me became truth instantly. Now, uncertainty existed, and uncertainty is dangerous for liars. Daniel closed the laptop. Unfortunately, part of the recording was erased. Olivia nodded quickly. As I said, the speed of her response made me suspicious. Too fast to prepared, like she already knew that section was missing. I filed the thought away. I would need proof later, right now. Suspicion wasn't enough. Daniel stood. We still have enough evidence to continue investigating. Olivia forced a smile. The smile looked painful. Good. She should be uncomfortable. For years, that role belonged to me. Now it was her turn. A phone suddenly rang. Everyone turned. The call came from grandmother. Evelyn's nurse, Richard answered. His face changed instantly. Fear. Real fear? My stomach tightened. Something was wrong. Richard stood so quickly, his chair almost fell backward. We're going to the hospital. The room froze. Nobody asked questions. Nobody needed to. The answer was already visible on his face. My hands stayed locked together during the drive. The hospital waiting area felt cold. Richard paced near the windows. Sophia sat with her head lowered. Daniel reviewed documents in silence. Olivia stayed, unusually quiet. That alone felt unnatural. The nurse finally appeared. She's awake. Relief moved through the room. Not enough, but something. We entered Grandmother Evelyn's room together. Machines beeped softly. The sound reminded me of another hospital, another life, another ending. I pushed the memory away. Grandmother looked tired, but her eyes remained sharp. She motioned for Richard and Sophia to come closer. I stayed near the door. Part of me expected the old pattern. Everyone else mattered first. I was used to that position. Then grandmother looked directly at me. Come here. The room became quiet. I stepped forward. Grandmother reached for my hand. Her grip felt weak. The gesture somehow hurt more than any insult, because it felt genuine. Something rare in this family, Richard. Sat beside the bed, Sophia wiped tears from her eyes. Grandmother took a slow breath. Then she spoke. Emily was always the child I trusted most. Nobody moved. Nobody even blinked. The words hung in the room, heavy, impossible to ignore. My throat tightened. For years, I had waited for someone to say something like that. Not praise, not approval, just belief. Simple belief. Richard looked down Sophia, began crying quietly. Neither tried to argue, neither denied it, because deep down, they already knew. Grandmother continued, I should have spoken sooner. The regret in her voice felt real. That made it harder to hear. I squeezed her hand gently. The room remained silent. Nobody knew how to respond. The truth had arrived too late. Not completely too late, but close enough, Richard. Rubbed his forehead. The movement looked familiar. He only did that when guilt appeared. I remembered hundreds of moments from my first life. Every accusation, every punishment, every time. He chose Olivia's version without asking mine. Maybe he remembered them too, maybe not. Either way, the damage existed. Sophia lowered her face into her hands. Her shoulders shook. I didn't feel satisfaction, only exhaustion. Some victories, arrived carrying years of pain. This was one of them. I stared at my phone while sitting alone in the hospital. The screen kept lighting up. Messages, notifications, mentions, hundreds of them, then thousands. My stomach dropped. Video clip filled the screen. A news report. A familiar face appeared. Rachel Stone, I recognized. Immediately. One of the biggest reporters in the country. The headline sat beneath her. Hart family heiress, accused of manipulation. My name appeared beside it. Mine, of course. I opened the story. The article painted me as selfish, greedy, attention-seeking. A spoiled daughter trying to steal family wealth. The comments were worse. Far worse, people who never met me suddenly hated me. Thousands of strangers judged me using lies. My phone vibrated again. Another article, another accusation, another rumor. The speed shocked even me then. I noticed something. Several details came from private family discussions. Information nobody outside the family should know. A cold realization settled into place. Someone was feeding information to the media. Someone wanted this story public, and already knew who benefited most. Olivia, my phone rang. An unfamiliar number. I almost ignored it. Instead, I answered, "Hello?" A calm male voice replied, "My name is Ethan Reed." The name sounded familiar. I sat up straighter. I've reviewed the reports. I stayed silent. Most people called to accuse me, not investigate, Ethan continued. Something doesn't add up. That sentence caught my attention, because nobody else had said it, not once. The timeline is wrong. I looked down at the articles, so had he noticed it too? Interesting. I think someone wants you blamed. I almost smiled. Finally, someone capable of basic observation. The conversation lasted only a few minutes. But when it ended, something had changed. For the first time since the rumors started. I wasn't standing alone. And somewhere inside Daniel's office, a final missing document had just been found. The original trust contract, the piece capable of destroying Olivia's entire lie. Then a national live interview was officially announced where the full truth would finally be revealed. My hands rested calmly in my lap as the studio lights turned on. I was sitting on the stage beside Richard, Sophia, Olivia, Daniel, and Rachel Stone. And it mattered because the entire country was about to see the truth that had been buried for years. The audience filled every seat. Cameras pointed toward us from every angle. Large screens hung behind the stage. Nobody could hide now. Rachel adjusted her microphone. "Welcome to tonight's special live interview." The room immediately became quiet. Millions of people were watching. I could almost feel it. The attention should have made me nervous. Instead, felt strangely detached. 3 years of betrayal had already shown me the worst things people could do. A television audience wasn't frightening. Rachel turned toward Olivia first, Of course she did. Olivia was still the public favorite, the misunderstood, daughter the victim, the innocent girl trapped in a family dispute. That image had protected her. For years, Olivia smiled confidently. The smile looked familiar. It was the same smile she wore every time she believed she was winning. Rachel nodded. Olivia, do you believe these accusations against you are false? Olivia answered immediately. Absolutely. Her voice sounded calm, practiced. I have loved this family my entire life. I have supported Emily even when she attacked me. I have remained patient despite constant accusations and rumors. Several audience members nodded. I wasn't surprised. Good liars always sounded reasonable. That was their advantage. They borrowed the language of truth. Olivia continued. I don't blame Emily. I think she's confused and hurt, but I would never do the things people are claiming. The performance was flawless. Almost, I noticed something. Her right hand trembled, slightly beneath the table. Fear was finally reaching her. She simply hid it better than most people. Rachel turned toward me. Emily, your response? I looked at Olivia, then at Rachel. I trust the evidence. The studio became silent. Nobody expected such a short answer. Rachel blinked. Olivia's smile tightened slightly. Good. The facts were stronger than any speech I could give. Rachel turned toward Daniel. Then let's see the evidence. The moment had arrived. Daniel stood. The room immediately focused on him even. Olivia sat straighter. Daniel carried a thick folder. The same folder that had haunted my memories for years. The same folder connected to every major. Betrayal in my first life. He placed it on the table. Then he opened it. The sound of paper seemed unusually loud. Nobody moved. Nobody looked away. Daniel removed a document. This is the original Hart Family Trust contract. The giant screens behind us displayed the document. Gasps spread through the audience. The signatures were visible. The dates were visible. Everything was visible. Daniel pointed toward section near the bottom. The original beneficiary listed here is Emily Hart. The room exploded. People began whispering. Audience members exchanged shocked looks. Rachel stared at the screen. Richard lowered his head. Sophia covered her mouth. Olivia's face turned pale. For a second, she looked like someone had stolen all the air in the room. Daniel continued. This document predates every revised version. Another wave of whispers followed. The audience had begun turning against Olivia. I could feel it. The shift was happening. Slowly, public opinion always moved like a storm. At first the wind changed, then everything else followed. Rachel looked toward Olivia. Did you know about this? Olivia swallowed. No, the answer came too fast. Nobody missed it. Daniel calmly placed a second document beside the first. This revised version contains alterations. He highlighted several signatures. The screens zoomed in. The differences became obvious. The audience reacted. Again, a few people shook their heads. Others looked uncomfortable. The confidence that filled the room earlier had started disappearing, and Olivia knew it. I could see it. For years, she controlled every story. Now the story was controlling her. Rachel looked at Daniel. Is there more? Daniel nodded. Yes. The room immediately fell silent again. I knew what was coming. The restored footage. The evidence Olivia feared most. Daniel signaled toward the production. Team, the lights dimmed. The giant screen switched. The recording began playing. I had watched it already, yet my pulse still quickened. The audience watched Olivia enter the storage room. Then they watched her move documents. Switch files. Remove evidence. Insert different pages. Every action appeared. Clearly no explanation existed. No misunderstanding existed. Only facts. The audience stared in silence. Nobody even reached for their phones. The footage demanded attention. Then the recovered section appeared. The missing section. The part that had been deleted. A sharp breath escaped several people in the audience. I understood why. The footage showed everything Olivia, removing original evidence. Olivia replacing records. Olivia creating the exact situation that later destroyed me. There was no debate anymore, no gray area, no alternative explanation, only truth. The silence became heavier with every second. Then the recording ended. Nobody spoke. Nobody needed to. The evidence had already spoken. Rachel slowly turned toward Olivia. "Would you like to respond?" Olivia opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time since I met her, she had no answer. The audience watched her, waiting. Nothing came. The silence lasted several painful seconds. Then Richard stood. My heart skipped. I wasn't prepared for that. Not because I expected support, because I had stopped expecting anything at all. Richard faced me, not the cameras, not the audience, me. His voice sounded rough. "Emily." The room became perfectly still. I was wrong. A strange pressure settled inside my chest. Years of memories rushed forward. Every accusation, every punishment, every disappointment. Richard continued. "I should have believed you." Nobody moved. Nobody interrupted. The audience listened. So did I. "You deserved better from me." His voice nearly broke. The sight felt unfamiliar. My father had always looked strong. Certain tonight he looked human. Sophia stood beside him. Tears ran down her face. "I failed you too." She wiped her eyes. I kept choosing what was easier to believe. The studio remained silent, not uncomfortable, respectful. Like everyone understood something important was happening. I looked at both of them. Part of me wanted this moment. Another part no longer needed it. That difference mattered. Sophia lowered her head. "I'm sorry." The apology sounded real. Not perfect, not enough to erase the past, but real. Then Olivia suddenly stood. The movement startled. Everyone, tears streamed down her face. Her confidence had vanished completely. "I never meant for this to happen." Nobody answered. I was scared. Her voice shook. "I thought if Emily became important, everyone would stop loving me." The audience watched quietly. No sympathy appeared this time. Only disappointment. Olivia cried harder. "I'm sorry." I stood. The entire room focused on me. Cameras followed. The audience waited. Richard waited. Sophia waited. Olivia waited. I looked at her. Then I answered. "I forgive you." The room became completely silent. Olivia stared at me. I continued, "But I won't go back." Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The words settled over the studio like a final verdict. For the first time in years, I wasn't asking anyone to choose me. I had already chosen myself. My fingers brushed against the silver butterfly necklace as I stood inside the charity hall. Several weeks had passed. The event buzzed with quiet conversations. I was standing beside Ethan Reed. And it mattered because he had believed the facts before the world changed its mind. "You seem happier." I glanced at him, maybe lighter.
Aw.
A small smile appeared on his face. I can see that. The answer made me smile too. Not because it was romantic, because it was honest. Honesty had become rare enough to feel valuable. The evening ended. It was quietly. No drama, no accusations, no battles, just peace. I returned home carrying a small memory box. I sat beside my window. Moonlight spilled across the room. The silver butterfly necklace rested in my hands. The same necklace I had left behind. The same necklace that survived everything. I opened the box, then carefully placed the necklace inside. For years I chased approval. For years I waited for someone else to tell me I mattered. I closed the lid. I didn't need that anymore. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. Reborn as the unloved daughter, but when my family heard my thoughts, I became their favorite.